Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm August Peter. The modern West has become rich in devices, but we've actually become poorer in the nature of communication and conversion. People can purchase machines, but that doesn't mean that we know how to govern our capacity for language, our tongues. There's a discipline here when it comes to communication, and the result, we're seeing it obviously in homes, universities, legislatures, workplaces, churches, you name it. We have access to every book ever written, but we still often speak with very little intellectual patience. We act like, frankly, toddlers on caffeine, because our speech has accelerated to the effect that we have far outrun the moral formation necessary for speakers to have the right to be heard in public. And therefore, if we are serious about, especially on social media, and so if we're serious about communication, about language, about conversation, we actually need to earn the right to communicate. Unfortunately, social media has taken that out entirely. Yet we have a necessity for civil speech and the moral formation of such, because it's one of the conditions by which a community remains human and continues to find and refine its definition of humanity in the public sphere and to survive disagreements. The Greeks understood this well. They knew that the city, the polis, was formed by speech. Law was a result of that. Aristotle, for example, he wrote in his Politics, "Man is by nature a political animal because he alone possesses reason by which he discerns the just and the unjust." That one sentence is an indictment upon our civilization right now, because our public debate today, unfortunately, has become nothing more than a few cleverly quipped slogans by people who have social media followings. And that's essentially it. But for Aristotle, however, political life depends upon rational speech. A city is more than a crowd of consumers. We're more than people who just share the same road while driving or pay the same taxes. A city is made up of citizenry who actually have a moral bearing on each other. And therefore, when citizens lose the habit of reasoning altogether, we weaken the faculty of reasoning and conversation outright. And therefore, we weaken the capacity of human beings to recognize the common good. You look at Plato's dialogues and you see the same lesson through Socrates. Socrates taught that by asking questions, we can expose the lazy soul to itself. In Plato's Apologia, Socrates says, "The unexamined life is worth living for no one." Now, this offends our age because modern vanity wants affirmation. We want identity, and often our actions, our desires define our identity in modern society. Socrates infuriated Athens. He refused to flatter whatever public opinion of the age was that violated objective truth. And the truth of the matter is, even today, we have the exact same problem. Every age, every society has worshipped fashionable opinions when it deviates from God and objective truth. But then we eventually discover in that society that truth is nothing more than that which is rejected because it's socially inconvenient, which means the people who reject it actually are aware of the truth. One of the avenues, therefore, this was brought to my attention by an article in the Public Discourse. One of the avenues wherein we can reform this capacity for disciplined communication is the seminar. And it gave me a lot of food for thought. I wanted to think about this well. The seminar retains its capacity, if exercised well, to gather students around a text and to ask them to submit their reactions to reason, which means if you don't have anything intelligent to say, sorry, don't say it. The Roman tradition deepened this political insight. Rome knew that the public order required trained speech and speech that was constantly refined in disciplined judgment. Cicero, for example, the Roman orator, the great famous Roman orator, argued, "Wisdom without eloquence does too little for the good of the state. It's not enough that you're wise. You need to be able to articulate it well." But then he also goes on to say, eloquence without wisdom is generally highly disadvantageous. And so the loud fool and the silent sage are both failures in the life of the city, in the life of the politics, because it requires truth. expressed with prudence for the good of others. Quintilian, yet another Roman orator, wrote in his Institutio Oratio, in Book 12 actually, he defined the orator as a good man skilled in speaking. That's a wise person, a good man who's skilled in speaking. That definition, unfortunately, seems to be lost, because orators became politicians in ancient Rome, in the Roman Empire. Today, however, we don't care about bad men and bad women becoming civil leaders. We are often looking for individuals who will match our particular brand of progressivist virtue signaling. But the Roman insight is a corrective for us, that any speech severed from virtue is destructive manipulation on the civic life of the polis, and that results in its destruction. So, the American founders, they inherited that Roman conviction. They understood that. And so they built not a blind democracy, they built a constitutional republic for citizens who are capable of deliberation, because they wanted a government that would move us away from being subjects trained for blind submission. James Madison warned us that a popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is only a prologue to a farce or a tragedy. Madison, his genius here, belongs above every classroom, I believe. And I've taught high school before. I can be the first to admit this to you. We are massively failing our next generation and every generation that follows, because very often, as we try to work hard to make people meet particular state-sanctioned or state-approved test score measures, we're failing training our students how to think, not just what to think. And therefore, by virtue of knowing how to think, what to think rightly in exercising the capacity of how to think. So when you read the Federalist Papers, you start understanding that the art of wise persuasion was once treated as a civic duty. And the Roman Publius, he reasoned that before the public, when one stands before the public, one has an obligation to present arguments, not just about power, but to power. Ambitions, faction, law, representation, human nature, all of these had to be curtailed by public speeches that moved the consensus of the public to reason. And so the founding assumption here in the United States was plain enough for anyone willing to learn it. Liberty requires citizens who can hear arguments without instantly reacting, with the capacity to reason rightly. John Adams understood this well. I've quoted this line again and again and again. This is from his letter to the Massachusetts militia. And this is what he said. Our constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, wholly inadequate to the government of any other kind. The point concerns far more than private piety. Constitutional forms require interior restraint from the very people who live under them. And so the exercise of seminars in classes trains that restraint, and I argue train it from the youngest possible age. Train children to have a capacity of patience to pause and refine their thoughts before they declare them publicly. Students must learn how to wait before speaking, how to listen before answering rather than reacting, how to receive correction and refine their answers based on that correction, and also how to lose an argument and what it means to lose an argument and why they lost the argument. Humiliation is not the goal here. The corrective for the sake of pursuing the objective truth is dialogue and seminar. Dialogue in this case, virtuous conversation, the pursuit of truth and dialogue, is such a crucial tool for parents to inculcate in their children. And if we're failing to give these to the next generation, then we cannot sit around wondering why all we have is an entire generation of reactionaries incapable of reasonably driving society forward. Nope, the discipline of the tongue is a Christian mandate. Stay tuned, I'm Marcus Peter.